Just sit down first. You have to say hello in the camera quickly. Now you behave.
Oh my gosh, it's like a carbon
Did you
copy.
behave? I'm asking you, did you behave? Hey, say hello.
Oh,
Wait,
so
what are you
great.
doing?
Good job, Raya. Hey everyone, welcome to the Grind. This week's edition of Grind is on Zoom because somebody, not saying who, but I think you know them very well, is not feeling quite, you know, well. So,
Catch COVID already or try to remain COVID free?
Ooh. I mean, we're there.
yeah, I mean, I've really
Speak for yourselves.
been there, not yet done that. So
Yeah.
It's
It is.
me.
it's him. It's him. Finally, I think all of us now can safely say that we've had COVID. Yeah, but Nathan, we're praying for you and we are believing that you'll be healed in Jesus' name. So, yeah, so this week we are starting a new series. We're studying the book of Luke. So, yeah, and I think, we're just going to get talking about the message.
That you preached.
The message that Pastor Petrina preached.
Yeah, it's really awkward to introduce myself that, I was the one who talked about it. But
Well,
anyway, yes.
then let us do it. The message that Pastor Petrina preached, entitled Getting Your Priorities Right.
Yes, that's right. So, I was basically addressing the relevance of the church. And and I think that's probably a timely question because I think, well, I don't know about you guys. Have you guys been asked about, is the church still relevant in this day and age? Or ever had conversations about that?
Luckily, no, because most of my
Yeah.
friends are at church. Although, some of us do actually think, like, what are we doing? What are we going to be doing in 10 years?
Yeah.
So it's not a direct question, right?
No. It's we haven't sat down for a symposium. But yeah, I mean, something along those lines, those questions are asked.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've had conversations about whether the church is relevant, and it's kind of really shocking to see that research has shown that the church attendance has been, going down, and if anything, the pandemic accelerated the attendance going down. So it's just basically there is no trends of showing it to increase. So, but anyway, let's just talk about the church for just a bit. So, what is the church to you?
I think for me, to be honest, I think this is gonna be really cheesy, but I would say like, church is a home away from home.
Oh wow, that is cheese.com. Well done.
That is cheesy, yes.
Yeah, no, it's just that because like a lot of the friends that I have, like the really close ones, are actually in church,
Yeah.
and you guys get to grow together in a way as well, your Christian life and everything. Almost majority of our lives are in church as well.
Yeah.
Because of course we're working here,
Yeah.
and on Saturday, Sunday we're pretty much there as well. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, church is definitely where I grew up, and like Rico said, it's where I have most of my friends.
Yeah.
I am closer to people that I grew up in church than people that I went to school with,
Yeah.
even though the time spent was not proportionate.
Right.
I think that just shows you the depth of the relationships that you have, and the friendships are still deeper because you share a faith and you share values, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
So definitely like the place where I grew up, the place where I kind of learned to be a human being.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, same. I mean, yes, it is a home away from home. But it's definitely church to me is family. And definitely have established some really long lasting relationships here, and had some wonderful mentors and so I think it's really I guess such a core part of me. And I think
That's true.
I think sometimes when we think about church, people often associate church with a building, not necessarily the people.
Sure.
But what the church is the people as well. And so, like, for you guys, how has the church helped you?
I don't know what is the word, like regulated? Is that the word? Like, like especially when you're in school, like when you're in university or in high school. I mean, that's one of the challenging times in our lives where you try to find yourself, identity, and then you get to meet people like your friends. Of course, they're not entirely the most how to say, the most influential people that, like, good influential people that you would meet. But then of course, with that, with church in perspective, you try to make sure that you are careful with what you do because of what church has taught you, what the people has kind of encouraged you to do, and be able to sort of like just be careful of what you do. I think that's one thing. So
Yeah.
Through all, like Rico said, all the stages of growing up, church has become like, it was and still is like safe harbor. Like we all went away for uni. We've all maybe lived abroad, but whenever we came back, we always came back to church. I think every time I came home from uni, it was like, oh, I want to meet up with my friends from church,
Right.
because they're like family, right? So
I mean, funny that you said, like, every single time you come back and you want to see friends, from church. I think for me, I didn't have that. I didn't necessarily come back and see want to see friends, because I think growing up, unlike you, I wasn't as plugged in to the church. So my community was, I didn't have that many Christian friends growing up. I think it was only towards later years, in terms of like maybe in college, then I just got more plugged into the church community. And so for me, in that sense, like, church then became sort of like an empowering place where I got to know, I guess I figured that, it became my responsibility to seek out these relationships, because I think when you grow up in church, like, okay, yeah, you're there, so therefore you have to make friends because you're there, your parents dumped you there, and in Sunday school. And as you grow older, it's like you taking an initiative to seek out community. And so I think, being away in college and also trying to seek out a church community, not because like I'm going with my parents, but because I'm finding a church for myself, I think it's that process more meaningful for me. And then it's in that church in the States that I went to, that's where it really helped me, because number one, it helped in my faith. Number two, it was where I started to seriously start serving at church. Like, growing up in Hong Kong in a church, I didn't really serve, like maybe just like help out from time to time. But I think it was really there where I got introduced to volunteering at middle school ministry, and that started something within my life. So yeah, I think that's in a way how church has helped me as well. It's also been like sort of like a testing ground and a training ground, like Nathan, you said, safe harbor. So definitely has been a place where I get to, I guess, experiment and try things out. And then you always have people who are gracious and, supporting you. So all three of us, we have, spent a significant time at church. We grew up. So what did you enjoy most about church?
Well, I think on a really base level, just having weekends with people in a group where I thought I could fit in. And also, like, because you're all so close, the banter is really good. You actually enjoy the time that you spend together, because we all really get along. We can all share in each other's lives and, the sort of stuff that we were going through. Then, it made for a lot of memories, I think.
Yeah. I think one of the things, definitely community aspect, I definitely enjoyed that about church. The inside jokes are just so much more, great. And I think definitely when I was growing up, I really enjoyed Sunday school. I think I really enjoyed the Bible competitions, basically all the games.
You enjoyed a competition? I'm shocked.
Yes,
I'm really shocked. I didn't know that.
I know, right? And all the prizes that was to be won. Oh, that was so fun. So definitely that was that. But yes, church was definitely was a huge part of my life, very fulfilling. And I would say most part, I really enjoyed it. But on the flip side, I'm sure we also have found points in our lives where we found church boring. So when have you found church boring, and in what context?
For me, it's normally in the context of a boring sermon, or not necessarily boring, just ones that I don't understand.
Right.
Yeah. I agree with that one too.
Whether it's like too technical or too whatever.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm just not in a place to hear it,
Mhm.
or
True.
you know, I guess that's when it's boring.
Right.
That's not to say, you know, the sermon wasn't great or the service wasn't great, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just be like that.
Yeah, it just didn't click that one. You know, it
Yeah.
could have been great for me, but then it would have been, you know, not that great for you.
Yeah, pretty much similar with Nathan. I haven't really had an experience where I find church boring. I think maybe there was just more of like a struggle, I would say, especially when I was younger. Church for me has been more of like a responsibility or like a thing that I need to do because my mom asked me to go to, something like that. But it's not. Of course, you would feel like it's boring because when you were young, you're like, "Oh, I could have been playing on Sundays
Yeah.
since I have to go back to school on the weekdays, stuff like that." But just in general, as I grew up, I didn't find it boring. But maybe, yeah, like what Nathan said, some of the like messages that you receive, either you're not ready to receive it, or it's just that, yeah, it's just you don't understand the message. So yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, I mean, I know this is like really dumb, but I used to think that every single church was like ICA, as in like every single church should be like ICA.
Oh,
So if anything wasn't like ICA, I thought it was, it was boring. So I was at a Methodist church. I'm like, man, this is boring. Maybe probably because there was no life, or it just felt like everything was just very methodical. Methodist church.
Yeah. Is it because you're so used to what ICA is, or it's just that your standard has reached to that point, and then you think that other churches that you've been to is not necessarily in that point?
I don't know, maybe I was just so used to ICA, because I think that's the only thing that I knew, right, for the long time. So every church equals to that. So yeah. But I mean, then again, you know, I mean, church isn't perfect. You know, there are going to be times where we're not going to get a lot out of it, or, you know, perhaps like, you know, things that just happened that, yeah, just didn't quite click, you know, that day. And, you know, actually, here's a question. What are some things that were untrue that you picked up at church?
Oh, okay. I think this is going to be very controversial, but let me just say it. You know, like when you attend a church, specifically, and then you've been there for a while, and then you left the church, that church is going to say that you've backslid.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard of that, like, but I've had experience like that where when you left the church, people already assume that you've backslided, but it's not that way.
Yeah.
It's just like shunning somebody.
Shun the non-believer. Shun.
Yeah.
Like really judgmental. I think for me, for the longest time, serving was impressed upon a lot of people like it was some kind of, like it was an obligation. It's your duty as a Christian to serve, and it must be your first and only priority. Basically, that if something else got in the way of you serving on a Sunday, then, you know, the short version is you weren't being a very good Christian.
Right.
Like if I had a football game that clashed with service, right? I'd have to skip that game because I wouldn't be a very good Christian if I went.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we all had our experiences, and, you know, the good and the bad, but here we are still in church. And and yeah, and again, going back to the question of like, is the church relevant, right? And I think something that to probably think about is like, what should the church be? We've associated it with so much with it being a building, not really the people. And when things have changed so much within the past 3-4 years, so what should the church be? Like, how can the church adapt in this time?
Well, from where I'm standing, like, you know, we've been through this whole pandemic thing where, you know, our workplace was shut down.
Yeah.
I like to look at the example that like some of our language congregations pastors have set. Buildings closed, so what? So they go out to where their people are,
Yeah.
right? And literally, we say this all the time, meeting people where they're at,
Yeah.
like physically and like spiritually doing that.
Mm.
And I'm not saying every church has to do that now, but the conversation I think needs to be had where we just ask the question, how are we going to pivot to this in the future, you know?
Yeah.
Because clearly people do have spiritual needs and they want those to be met, but more and more I think it's like they want it to be met on their terms.
Yeah.
So as
Wow.
a church, we have to go out and meet them on their terms. And it's not like it's not like we're giving something up and compromising.
Yeah.
Right? We are literally just going to meet people where they're at. That's all.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think I would just add on to what Nathan says. Pretty similar. It's just if church can be able to figure out how can we be able to reach out to people personally, like on a personal level, because I feel that especially after COVID, there's a certain longing for that. I feel, especially like everyone has been isolated during the COVID season, and it's a struggle because you're trying to cope up with the situation that you are in, but then at the same time you feel that you're so alone. And I think there are a lot of people. Let me just try to answer that again. And I feel during this season, if the church can be able to reach out to these people more personal, they can be able to sort of encourage them, or I don't know, like just be able to see what is in their heart, what is the thing that these people actually are looking for, longing for. So
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's how the church can adapt, is basically meet the people where they're at. So with technology, through just tweaking things a certain way, because we can't exactly expect people to show up at church and then oh, you're not here, we can't serve you. So it's really going to the community and seeking these people out, which is why I guess we have stuff happening online. We have Mana, we have just what Nathan said, the language congregations, just doing stuff for new people. In fact, we're opening up more, setting up more new congregations, setting up new campuses, just the opportunity to really meet people where they're at. And so I guess the questions to always think about is, does the church engage in society, or is it an escape from reality? Because sometimes people just escape church, like, oh, I'm out, that's it, and then you go to reality. But really, the church shouldn't be an escape for reality. It should be where we can engage with the community. So I know we're surrounded by people who think that attending church is not important. Maybe they faced hurt, maybe they're busy, maybe they're bitter, and I don't know what kind of, maybe you've had conversations with people. One of the reasons why they don't come is basically maybe they're hurt by people. All right, so to end this conversation, we're surrounded by people who probably don't come to church for a variety of reasons, whether it be busyness or bitterness, or they've been hurt or whatever it is. But how do we encourage those who think attending church as not necessary or important?
I think that's a really interesting one, because we are in a unique position where we have made church accessible without it being in person. So we're kind of caught in the middle here, where we're saying, you can do church, anywhere, but please come back to church.
Right.
So I think it depends on who you're talking to and their reasons why they're not coming back to church, right? So but I would say, I think for a lot of people, to encourage them to come back, is that it's just simply, it's always really good to have community around you. As difficult as life is, and as much as you think you can handle it by yourself, and maybe you can, right? Maybe you are just super competent, super capable. it is always going to be easier when you're doing it with other people.
Yeah.
And sharing the load.
Yeah.
They may not be able to carry everything for you
Yeah.
and do everything for you, but they can still do something.
Yeah.
Mm.
And hey, I recognize that, attending church in person may be a challenge, a literal challenge for people. And I think it's not the idea of like, oh, you have to come in person, but not, I think going back to Hebrews, where it says do not neglect meeting up with each other because it's important. And it's really, church is being with the people, the community. Like you can still do church online, but do you have that group that you are engaged with? Are you still engaging with the people? Are you engaging with service? Are you actually worshiping or service? Because people can still also show up to church in person and not engage at all. They can just be there and then bye, I'm out. So I think at the end of the day, it's not about trying to get people into the building. It's really not trying to sit down and listen to message. It's really getting people to really engage them with who God is and to them about just the importance of God and how he's this all-powerful being that can change lives and make things happen. So
completely agree with you guys as well. And I think one thing I like to encourage people as well is that being a church is not something that we want, but it is actually something that we need. Because one thing that I'm always reminded of is, like as a community, that's where the presence of God is even more. That's why in the Bible it says where 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, He is in their midst. And I think that's one of the reasons why God has put that to us and reminded us that we need community. And it strengthened us, because the thing is, if one is down, the other two person can build you up, bring you up through encouragement. So and as humans, we are sort of we are programmed in a way to isolate ourselves, because we feel better being isolated. But then in the natural way, we should be actually communing with people, and the right people as well. And being in a church, I do believe that this is where you're going to be able to grow in your relationship with God, because you're being with people who are also in the same goals where you want to be as well. So
True.
Preach. Thanks,
Pastor Rico.
Yes. But it is important. I think it's just doing life with people is so important, which is why we keep telling people, be part of a kingdom group. And I know, even though we were doing like church online when we were all not able to meet in person, even though yes, I was worshiping alone at home, but I think it's the fact that we still have people to do life with and catch up and talk about the message and go through questions. I think that really was edifying to my faith, even though it was also physically isolating. So I think it's all about engaging, not being a spectator, but being a participant in the church. And I think coming together and meeting in person, I think it's not supposed to stay at church. We're not supposed to just like come together on the weekend, worship Jesus, okay, bye, but really bring out what we've received to the city, to our communities, and bring the goodness of God. So anything that we encounter is not meant to be kept to ourselves. It's meant to, for the outside, so to speak. So so that's all the time we have. And it was a really insightful conversation. And whoever's tuning in, hey, we do hope that you'll be able, like, if you are struggling to find a church community, hey, we want you to know that there's a place for you right here at ICA. So just do check in with us and we'll help you get plugged in. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you at the next grind. Bye.